This is really very simple, because you see, the thing that I found out a long time ago is that a lot of the people in my groups would be able to do lots and lots of hypnosis, and at a certain point there'd be certain things they couldn't do. Now, so, as Milton said, and if you spend hundreds of hours with these people, eventually they will learn to do this hypnotic phenomenon. I don't know about you guys, but I ain't got that kind of time, right? Especially if you're a dentist, you know, or a chiropractor, you know, or just a hedonist like me. Most of those people aren't that much fun anyway. However, what happened is one day somebody came over, and what I did is they couldn't do positive hallucinations. They can do negative hallucinations, although I thought they were hallucinating through most of their life. What I did is I told them to look at the table. They looked at the table, and I said, close your eyes, and you count to 4, and you look there. There'll be a picture. And they closed their eyes, and I put a picture on the table. And they went, 1, 2, 3. They opened their eyes, and they looked, and I said, now, close your eyes. And I put it back under the table. And they opened their eyes. Now, wait a minute. Now, this is the important part. I said, now close your eyes again. And when you turn to the other side and open them, there'll be a 6-foot French poodle. And when they opened their eyes, there was, and I didn't put that one there. Now, what happened is by convincing this person that they were able to do it, it changed a belief. Now, think of the most overwhelmingly wonderful things that you could have, and realize if you do the exercise here and change, and all you got to do is real simple, is you take the belief that stops them from dropping into a really deep trance, deeper than they would ever suspect, and something that they used to believe and they don't, and you go through and you check the submodalities. Picture's bigger here than in this one. Is one on one side and not the other. Color, contrast, and all this other stuff. Now, the only thing you want to know is if there's a difference. Now, once you kind of go through that, then what you do is you take the strong belief that prevents them from being able to do this, and you turn it into one just like the one that's changed. That makes sense, doesn't it? And then the next thing you do is you put up the belief they would rather have about how they could drop into a trance beyond their own comprehension, and you make it a strong belief. And as you do so, guess what happens? This person believed it strongly enough to disappear. These people believed it strongly enough that they started making the same stuff again. That's great. You take the most successful product in American history and you change the formula. Some people are operating with the wrong people making those decisions. Are they not? Now, at least they had the sense to bring it back, because if there were some corporations I know, they wouldn't. These people are going to be around a lot longer than us, and probably Pepsi, unless I get their ad account.
Let me just make a suggestion. Raise your hand if you know about submodalities. Okay. Look around the room.
Hold your hands up. Get them up.
Look around the room.
If you don't know about submodalities, pick one of these people as your partner. So if you don't understand, they can explain it to you. And you can do this very fast. And you can take 20 minutes apiece, do the exercise, and end up in a deeper trance than you ever have before. Yes. What, orgasms? Oh, you can do that part. No, that was on the back. Yeah, that was just a way that she could go. See, come here. Let me show. I want to show him, but I don't want you.
I'm not sure I know everything that happened.
Okay.
I know. Trust me.
Trust me. I'm a doctor. Would I lie to you?
Here's trust.
That's okay. There's trust. You know, right on Newsfeed, they took me to one of them groups where you do the trust circles. I dropped the sucker. Because I figure if you don't ever do that, then they won't have to really trust. It doesn't take trust if you got a guarantee. But every once in a while, somebody steps aside and goes, oh, shit. Right? Then it takes trust. Or stupidity. All right, you sit up here. Now. Your gum flew out? Say what? Now, what I want you to do is I'll put your hands like this, right? And I want you to take This hand here, that's the left one. Lift it up like that. Now I want you to like this. Here, and I want you to squeeze your wrist all the way down. That's right. There you go. Now I want you to remember absolutely everything from your last trance, because this is a way you can always go into a trance. And when you go down, you can also come up. Not bad, huh?
Not bad.
Now, people really can't make each other feel things, can they?
No way.
Come on down. Now, that's right. You won't need this. Yeah, teachers are like that. No, you don't need to sit down. We're going to have you stand up. Say, we are going to manipulate you physically. Okay. That's right. Now, there's nothing to be afraid of. So you can feel relaxed and calm. Now, you notice as you look over here how the light kind of reflects off of that thing over there, the lens on the camera?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or one of the pieces of metal or something. I want you to just, we'll take care of your hands, okay? Grab a hand. Let's take a hand in this. We're going to take a hand in this and see if we can't help you in some way to learn about going into a deep trance.
Okay.
Now, so as you fixate your gaze on that, no matter what happens, your eyes are to stay right there. Now, all we're going to do is we're going to move your arms. And you just watch carefully how that reflection, okay? Yeah, that's right. Now, you ready? Are you ready? Now, all we're going to do is we're going to take your hand. We're going to go like that. That's not so bad, huh? And then we're going to bring it down. There we go. And then we're going to go. And down. That's right. Like this, like that. There you go. That's right. There, like this. And like that. All I want you to do is to allow your eyelids to close and your knees to gently bend in a moment as your arms slowly go down only as fast as you sit down in the chair behind you. You're going to go all the way into a deep trance and no faster than that. That's right. There you go. And your arms will stop where they are. And I want your hand to just go down only as fast as you take a deep breath. That's right. And begin to learn how to hold on to the best feeling you ever had in your whole life. Because your memories are all there. And I want a memory that's so good you had to lie about it. And as it begins to creep right up there, your hand will begin to go down at the rate that it begins to amplify. As you begin to see it become bigger and stronger. So that if you was this good, you would add more and more and more. So when your hand on the other side does touch your leg, that good feeling will be right there attached to the thing that your unconscious will burst in your mind is the most appropriate moment for you to have a feeling. When it touches your knee now, it's a commitment for you to always have that feeling when you have a need for it. And every single time you touch yourself in a place that only your unconscious and you know about, you can bring that back. Or when you see that thing you thought about, it'll be there because your past is your resource. It's the thing that you should use for the future, but only to take the good stuff and make it stronger
And better.
and more exquisitely pleasurable, such that
And as you listen
to
those
this
words,
you realize that
you're
every single time you have that good feeling, one of your problems will go
away
and left forever
and ever.
in smoke.
That's right.
Visually, of course. And when you see children in your class that start to bother you and do things that you don't like, suddenly something will make it so it doesn't bother you quite so much. So when you see the things they do that bother you, all I want you to do is just feel this inside you and know
That you have the ability to recover this
and enjoy,
anytime you want.
even though the little bastards bother you.
That's right.
When you do those nasty things, you get that smile, and you know something? Just that smile will be enough to stop them. Right in their tracks. That works with big little kids, too, you know. Now, I'm going to count to 1. And when I do, very slowly, you're going to arise from this trance. 10, and you can do the rest. 9, 8, 7,
6,
5, minus 4 is
1.
1. Well, that's shitty, isn't it, to do to some poor innocent person, you know? Excuse me, you're in my way, boy. Grab yourself a stool. Now, the thing about going into a trance is being able to take all the feelings, all the thoughts, and everything you know, like how to turn that speaker in the back sideways so it doesn't echo, basic acoustics. See how much nicer that is? Now, what I want you to do, what time is it?
4:44 and 22 seconds.
Oh, boy. Speaking of pain, control, you know, if you're going to be precise and exquisite in your use of something, it should at least be below your belt, Edmund. Some things go up, some go down, and in this case, we're going to reverse those. Now, what I would like you to do is to realize, now what you watched us do is to use cross-cortical tactics. See, the thing is what we did is basically, and see, I figured that what we do is we'd give you an exercise to try, because you know what homework is? That's where you take this and you do it to somebody at home. Now, I know some of you aren't going home, but that's why you'll have to find somebody who's in whatever home you're using now.
Or one of the hotel staff.
Or somebody that attracts you in the lobby, bar, or the pool area, or wherever you do your trolling. Now, it's where you throw out your line, get them hooked, and then you just reel them in. It's a sales technique. Now, what I want you to do is to use this technique, and what I'd like is for, if you can, how many of you are staying here in the hotel? Come, my condolences. Includes me. Those of you who are staying here can seriously get together, and what I would like you to do is one stands on one side of you and one stands on the other. Now, if there are only 2 of you, you have to stand in front of the person, which does open up certain possibilities, depending upon how well you're about to know them. What you do is you're bringing both hands up together. I tell you what, once you stand up and spread out here, because I would really like you to know how to do this in trance. Okay, now you take your hands, make sure the person in front of you is not too close, unless you want something else. What I want you to do is to take your hands and slowly, slowly, bring them both up, palm up, and stare ahead. fixated. Very gently. That you went up too high, lady. Pay attention, Jill. So it's like this. Arms bent beside that. There you go. Up like that, and then give it a little downward motion, and then point one and go one palm up. One points, and one is palm up. Right? And this one's lower. Come on, Jill. Pay attention here. Right? And then give it a little downward, and then bring them up together. Palm not so high, Jill. And then bring them down slowly and reverse it. That's right. And then bring them up together. All the way, a little jolt like that. And then as you let them go down, allow your eyelids to close. That's right. All the way down. And as you do so, you'll notice. Careful there, lady. Do not do anything but come out of trance. There we go. And then have somebody there to gently sit you down into a chair. You all can come back now, yeah? Y'all come back now. We almost lost someone here. Let's always forget how much this is a very powerful technique. The smoother and more gentle it is, the deeper you will go into a trance. What it does is it takes something called the advanced techniques of accelerated cross-cortical research, better known as confusion. And it takes the fact that you have something called
Oh, sit down now.
little body catalepsy there, huh? You know, if you're going to do body catalepsy, there are certain places that it's more beneficial than others. That does not apply to you except in certain ways. That's right. Don't blush now. You know what an anchor is? That's it. We could paint her red.
There it comes.
That's right. And he anchored it. Smart man, didn't miss it. I like you devious guys. Richard elicits the response, and you take it home. They always did that when I played rock and roll. You know, me, I warm up the engine, and you take them home and park in the garage. Well, now, what I want you to do is to try this, and what are you laughing for? This tape's going to be great, you know. Look at the thing in focus. That's when I did that thing with Milton, you know, tried to do the thing. I hired a guy to film him. And the guy said, and that's right, and go all the way to the trance, and it blurs out, and the camera goes to the floor. 45 minutes of floor. And you can wake up now, and the camera goes up and goes into focus. I said, all trance applies to everyone but the man running the camera focusedly and clearly, so that in clear water, they will have the learnings of the Court Flag Hotel. Now, I want your unconscious minds to do one thing for you tonight, which is to make something you do inordinately easier and more exquisitely fun in a way that it just kind of shocks you and puts a smile on your face that's called a smirk, and get somebody else to drool out of the corner of their mouth. Now, I don't want to go around putting ideas into your heads.
Okay, I'm running out of voice here is the only problem. And since I'm running out of voice, it's a good thing that it's a hypnosis workshop. Because you will be able to supply what's not there. Now, this morning what I'd like to do, how many people in here have done something called chaining before? Chaining, that's where you take somebody and you put them against a wall. Now, one of the things that about doing hypnosis itself does raise possibilities. One of the things about doing hypnosis itself, especially for those of you who have some kind of a clinical background, is it really is a fantastic tool for therapists because most of them seem to suffer from a disease of not knowing when they succeeded and when they haven't. Now, for those, it's very difficult. So they come up with what I refer to as the fudge factor, or the finagle phenomenon, of telling you things like, well, somewhere inside you, this is changing. Now, I always remember Virginia Satir referred to that process as yeasting, a bad choice of words, especially if you're doing things in deep trance. Now, doing things in deep trance requires that you go ahead and you try lots and lots of things. I've found out when I've been teaching hypnotic patterns or NLP patterns, which, by the way, are not profoundly different in nature, that one of the things that's very helpful is if the hypnotists themselves, for example, yesterday we were doing something to change the belief of somebody who is going into a trance so that they would be able to go into a deeper trance. You did that yesterday, right? Did you find that makes it easier? This is yes, boy, what'd you guys do? I thought I stayed up late. Now, what I want you to do is to take some simple things, which is, if you take the phenomenon of hesitation as a response, that all of those language patterns, it's okay, I don't have to spell, just think auditorily. It's my way of getting back at visuals while they're eliciting responses. Now, what I want you to do is, you do know what anchoring is. Do people know what an anchor is? Just like the reinduction signals that when I had you do the double induction, the thing that you can go now is, you remember now when you sit down and you're going to do something with somebody today, it's going to be a lot faster because they're going to have something to assist you in putting them into a deep trance. It's an anchor, you remember it? Hello? Never mind. What? You did that at home with other people. Okay. Now, one of the things that both NLP concentrate on and hypnosis is setting up a direction for activity. Now, as a hypnotist, or as a hypnotizing hypnotist in this case, what I'd like you to be able to do is to use anchoring in the following way. To be able to take and put someone into a deep trance, to practice your inductions, which is the first thing that you're going to do in this exercise, and then what I want you to do is more conversationally than you normally do in NLP, I want you to begin to describe to this person 5 different responses and anchor them. Now, how many of you have seen the Milton Erickson tape where he works with Monday? In here? Now, on that tape, what Milton does is he very slowly goes along and he just, pardon? Did you say something? No. All right. He very slowly goes along and he elicits 5 different experiences. In the case of Mondi, he refers to and goes back to her past to a time when she was chasing ducks with abandonment. That was duck chasing Mondi. He also goes back and gives her a spanking, something I mentioned the other day. And you see, as he goes through her past and has her do age regression for window breaking Mondi, he also uses age regression as a vehicle to get back to a time when she was chasing ducks with abandonment. Now, the 5 responses that I want you to get are here, somewhat. The first one is impatience, is hesitation. You see, in order to be able to use the hypnotic skills that you're getting here and all the NLP skills, you need to be able to just go for it. And a lot of times what I noticed is people begin to practice, because all the things you learned yesterday, I want you to start putting together into a package. What I want you to do is to use age regression, primarily, and something called finger signals. Finger signals are where, when you have somebody in a deep trance, you reach over and you lift up one finger, and you tell them, that's your no finger, and you lift up the other finger, and you say, that's your yes finger. And you say, now, as I communicate with you and ask you questions, you can answer me unconsciously with honest, unconscious movement by signaling with the fingers. Now, this gives you a way of doing a couple of things. One is playing 20 questions. In order to make it so that this person in the future uses the skills easily, what we're going to do is to go from what I find to be the major disease that gets in everybody's way, hesitating. We're going to find a graceful way of getting from hesitation, because going from hesitation to go for it's a pretty radical jump. You ever notice that when you were hesitating? So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a direction with 5 different responses. See, we're going to go from hesitation to frustration. See, that's not too hard. And from frustration to impatience. And from impatience to wanton desire. Now, we'll think of it. Yes, I know. They have wanton soup. Now, what you're going to do, and then the next thing we're going to do is to go for it. Now, have you ever had the experience where you just went for something and just tried it in all kinds of variations just to see what you could do? Now, usually when people have that, it isn't in the context where they really would like to have it. They do this instead. So you're going to go through and take each of these responses, and you're going to go and make it anchor of some kind. Now, once you have the anchors, you can use age regression to get there. You can go back and tell them to go back and remember a time where they hesitated, to think of all the times and places in your past and in your future where you stop yourself, where you hold back. And I want you to take one of those now. And as you notice those kinds of changes on their face, you can either anchor kinesthetically, or pick their name and say their name was Fred. You can then say, as you see it come up on their face, you can go, hesitating Fred. Now, whether you use an auditory anchor or you use a kinesthetic anchor, as soon as you get the next one, which is frustrated Fred, what you're going to do is you're going to fire off the first anchor, and as you notice the changes coming up on their face, you're going to put down the second anchor and lift up the first one. And then wait, and you can talk about whatever you feel like talking about. That is one of the nice things about hypnosis, if you're a therapist, is that they shut up and you talk for a change. You can also give them amnesia for their problems, and if they don't pay their bill, you can get their memory back. Or you can give them amnesia for the address of your office. Now, once you do this, then you come back to it and you fire off just the first anchor, number 1. And what will happen is it will automatically go from number 1 to number 2. And when you see it, then you fire off number 3. And then you sort of talk about this and that. You go back, and when you fire number 1, number 2, and number 3 will automatically come up. And then you add number 4. Now, I would like to caution you about one thing that I've noticed. Every now and then, when we do this with people, when people go through this, and they go, now, you can feel that hesitation. So it turns to frustration. And you're so impatient that you begin to feel that wanton desire. And last time I did this in a group, somebody said, so open your eyes and go for it. Now, I would recommend that, unless that's what you're after, that you make sure that you don't do that. Now, I would also like you to then go back to the finger signals themselves and ask their unconscious mind if there is some hypnotic phenomenon. You have your little list with the hypnotic phenomenon on it? You know, arm catalepsy? Do they have one of those? Now, as you do, then I want you to ask them, you say, now I'm going to ask your unconscious mind if it's made all the necessary changes for you to be able to take Fred all the way back in time, honestly. Now, words like honestly have semantic density Now, that semantic packing means that you are allowed to go back honestly, which means you don't get partial age regression. You get more total age regression. You become younger. Now, if you want to do this somewhat more creatively, you can do things like have people look at the book of time and turn it back 1 year. And each time they turn that page back, they'll become 1 year younger. And they can look at that year and then reach out and turn another page until they get back to a year where they can find the strongest example of one of these things, like wanton desire. Wanton desire. Now, once you've gone through all of this, use the finger signals as a way of getting them to do the hypnotic phenomenon, set up the responses for your chain, and when you fire them off, then I want you to give the person what's called a post-hypnotic suggestion. That means that when you come out of this trance, whenever you find yourself starting to hesitate about learning to do something new with these tools here, or in any way that infringes upon the quality of your life, what will happen will be, and then just fire off the first anchor. You should see the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and the fifth one, and then you tell them to slowly bring themselves out of trance and to retain all that they've learned. Because a lot of times people come out and everything they learned, they leave in the trance. So you also tell them that the learnings of the trance will come out of the trance, and so will they. So now what I want you to do is to find yourself a partner. Yes, sir? No? What do you mean, no? Shush! Yes, sir?
5 steps.
Yes.
You recommend that the same anchor be used?
No. Different one for each one.
What I meant
Did you have a question? What was it?
what I meant was, it would work better for me if you demonstrate.
I don't care.
Thank you.
It's easier for you to have me do it, but guess what? I'm not going to be there in the future, but I am going to demonstrate
So when
afterwards.
you see it,
I'm not visual, so I don't want to do it that way. See, I do it afterwards, so after you mushed your way through it, then I can show you and you'll know what to look for. Because you have an example in your own experience, kinesthetically, visually, and auditorily. You see, there are millions of things that you can do with this. But if I show you first, then you're, especially the old eidetic visuals, will do it just that way every time with no variation. So especially for you visuals, I'm not doing it first. That gives you a lot more range of how to do things. You see, I've already done it before. That's why we call it a workshop. So get you a partner and go to work. All right? And as you do, I want you to notice which side of your body is closest to the source of heat. Because what I want you to do, if, for example, you're near a fire, I want you to notice how that side begins to become warmer than the other side. And as you do whatever thing fits for you, I want you to let that warmth spread. And I want you to begin to speed the movie up faster and faster, and let the warmth spread more and more. That's right. Now, as you warm yourself for a few moments here, I want you to realize that you're sitting on the precipice of an unusual opportunity. Because the next thing I'm going to have you do, in terms of an exercise, is to invent some new technique. In a particular way, of course. I want you, as you warm yourself comfortably, to begin to think about the submodalities of just the situation you are in. And think, wouldn't it be strange if the submodalities of one system affected another? You see, for example, Milton Erickson, MD, of Phoenix, Arizona, did a set of experiments with hypnosis where he did things like induced color blindness. Now, when he induced hypnotically color blindness, something funny happened. Some of the people became tone deaf, which might lead one to believe that there is what's called synesthesia overlaps from one system to another. Now, what you're going to do is to consider, for example, right now, if you reached over and fired off that anchor that you have on your arm for yourself to deepen your trance, and that was to allow you to go deep enough. That's right. That your unconscious mind would begin to make all the necessary changes such that pain control for you could be accomplished by saying that everything that you felt in one arm took every single amount of pressure and turned it into a volume, that the particular location of where you were touched determined what sound, such that if somebody rubbed your arm, you wouldn't feel a thing, but you'd hear the sound of something. It's a lot more fun way to deal with pain control. See, very often, it's done differently. And your unconscious mind will understand this. See, on your other arm, you can begin to feel an ice cube. And that ice cube could become colder and colder and spread, just like what it would take to the point where if you put ice on something long enough, if you were to touch it with a pin, prick, you wouldn't feel anything at all. Now let that ice cube go away and go back to that other arm. And let your unconscious imagine what it would be like if more thoroughly you took any system and chose to have parts of one system go into another. Now, for the purposes here, I want your unconscious mind to sit down and look at the nice list of submodalities that you either wrote down or you can hallucinate on the blackboard now, or you can ask someone who did. And I want you to just randomly, for no unbeknownst reason, realize there's no need to hesitate. There's no need to wait. I want you to just circle or choose a few submodalities and move them from one system to the other, so that, like the last time I did this, I ended up playing songs on someone's arm by making the higher up the arm, the higher the pitch, the lower down the arm, the lower the pitch. The more I pressed, the louder was the volume. And while I played that song, somebody operated on that arm, and they didn't feel anything in that arm at all. However, what they were listening to had some strange static in the background. Now, the other thing you can do would be as if you took auditory external and you made pitch go to a feeling, and volume go to the pressure of that feeling, and moisture. Now, I want you, just for the sake of experimentation, to realize in a moment you're going to come out of this trance and you're going to go back into another one with a partner, and I want you to begin to vary the kinesthetic sensations that you have by turning them into sound or pictures. For example, if people have problems because they are constantly hungry, and this has a tendency to enlarge their body, those sensations, the cravings that people get, could instead of be something they felt in their body, it could be something that was put up into a picture. And the more intense the feeling, the further the picture goes away. These synesthesia patterns themselves open up many choices. And I want you also, as long as you have that person in the trance, to also again set up finger signals. And the way that you do this is first get them into a deep trance, deeper still. Set up finger signals, and then ask their unconscious if it would be all right for you for a period which you define of 5 minutes or 10 minutes to allow them to make all the necessary adjustments at the unconscious level to make whatever series of changes at the level of submodalities that you choose. So look at your charts when you come out of trance and pick something weird and exciting. The little exercise that you just did there, how'd you do it? That's pretty weird stuff, isn't it? Yeah, that's using your mind just strangely enough. Now, the number of purposes that you can use this sort of thing for is really enormous. You can use it for pain control, and you can use it in order to change all kinds of things. And one of the things that I would like to sort of add to it is, it seems to me that there's been an overemphasis in hypnosis on pain control, on making things go away, rather than putting things there that are extremely pleasurable. Now, I don't know about you guys, but being somebody who really believes in more ecstasy now, I thought perhaps if you had a vehicle where you could do a very rapid trance induction, because I mean now you're kind of getting the idea of putting people in trance. You've been going in and out of trance all along. Now it's...
I need to check out. How many of you have gone into a trance? Now seriously, raise your hands if you went into trance. Okay, so that's 100%. How many of you forgot? Jack, you fell off the chair here yesterday.
Yeah. He wasn't himself, so it doesn't count. I know. Now, yes, that's true. You can get away with anything with that one. You just simply say, you know, anything you do that you shouldn't have done, you just look at somebody and you go, I wasn't myself. I was her. So blame her. Now, the thing is if you had a really quick way, in other words, of if, you know, because you know when you meet people, sometimes, you know, they're not in a good mood. Never notice that? Now, if you had a way that you could incorporate a really rapid induction and then be able to take and make somebody feel really good. Now, I'm going to give you a little something, and Ed's going to give you a little something he has. He's something that we did together in Miami till they burned the hotel down. Floods of hypnosis. See, I looked up at the ceiling and started talking about water coming through it, and the sprinklers came on. I never hypnotized a building before. Now,
How many of you were there while we got sprinkled on that? That was an interesting one.
so Richard's not too paranoid of hotel fires. After all the years I've been traveling, I was the first one down, and I was on the top floor.
I was right behind him.
And then we went and had coffee in the lobby while the rest of the people tried to get out. What amazed me is over half the people on the floor where the fire were didn't hear the alarm and didn't wake up at all. These people need to speak to their unconscious mind and say, look, sleeping soundly is wonderful, but hear this, this, and this. That's one of the nice things about hypnosis is that you can change your mind in that way. Also, those of you, by the way, is there anybody in here who has any insomnia? Guess not anymore, huh? I'm sure you guys were insomniacs last night.
I don't hear anything when I'm asleep.
Well, you can make yourself hear them if you want to.
But I was interested in what you were saying.
Oh, okay. Well, you just wait a minute and I'll tell you. That's like shut up, okay? Now, the thing is the way you program your mind is very simple. You go into trance and you tell yourself that you can hear, and then you name specifically what it is. For example, you can also program yourself when you go into trance, by yourself especially, to come out at a specific time. To say, in exactly 10 minutes. Your biological clock is rather noisy, is it not? Now, what I want to do is I want to give you a little rapid induction, and then rapid induction. Before I give it to you, though, what I want you to do is to just close your eyes for a minute and pretend that you're in trance. Just for a second.
It's more fun to pretend anyway.
Just, like for example, just reach over and touch yourself on the arm. And go into a trance deeply. And as you do so, I want you to remember a time when you had a really wonderful feeling. And as you remember, I want that feeling itself to begin to spread. And with each breath, it's going to grow and become wider and bigger and stronger, especially if it has a giggle attached to it. Now, as I continue to speak, with each word I say, I want that feeling to grow stronger and stronger and stronger. And I want whatever it's about to become faster. There you go. Put it in hyperdrive. Now I want you to spread that feeling all and up and down. Each leg, right down to your toes. And then make it stronger in your toe and have it rush up the inside of your legs, right across your stomach, and up to your nose. Now, playing with your feelings is fun. Playing with other people's feelings is also fun. So now I want you to come out of trance for a moment. There you go. You don't have to come all the way out, though, just as much as you want to. Now, one of the things that Milton did that I always thought was kind of hip was he was giving a lecture, much the same as I am here. And in the days that he did it, people didn't believe that there was such a thing as hypnosis. And Milton got up, and he was giving a lecture, as Milton does, about going into a trance. And while he continued to lecture, they had a person that falls into the category of a dickhead in the audience. That's an academic term for somebody who thinks with the lowest part of their body. And I mean, that's when they have their feet up in the air. Now, academicians, I've always thought that academic education was a profoundly good name for most of what they do there. But anyway, for anybody to say there's no such thing as hypnosis, and there's no such thing as altered states, you know, has never driven on the road for a long time. But I mean, and to try and measure that is not nearly as useful as just doing it. Now, the thing that he did is this particular person said that he couldn't be hypnotized. Milton said, so you can't go into a trance. No, and so Milton asked him to go up on the stage with him. And the man walked down, lumbered up the steps, started across the stage, and Milton said, and what is your name? Reached out his hand, and he did what's called a handshake interrupt, where a motor program that's a very basic automated thing is interrupted. And there's nothing there, and so you fill it with a trance. And then at the end, you go back, and you complete it and shake your hands, and everything in the middle has amnesia and is gone. So the man who came up and said it demonstrated all these hypnotic phenomena for the audience, and then Milton put him back in the right position, and Milton shook his hand and said, oh, it's nice to meet you. And the man had total amnesia for everything that was in between, and sat there and denied that he had done any of those things and called Milton a charlatan. And Milton said, well, one of us is not all here.
Slightly perverse sense of humor.
Ma'am, would you come here? Come here. I just want to show you how it works. It's a simple thing. I just wanted to pull this out of the way. This is my contribution to science. Don't be running at me like. Okay, I'm sorry. What was your name?
Dion.
Hi, Dion. I want you to turn and look at your hand, just like that, and watch the changing focus of your eyes. And as you notice the changing focus of the eyes, you can take a deep breath, and then suddenly and quickly, you can let your eyelids close. That's right. Now. And as you do so, Ed is going to show you something about yourself. Because when your eyes open, after he speaks to you, you're going to see something you won't believe. And you can believe that.
Because sitting there on your arm is a very good friend of mine. It's a little blue parrot that has green feet and a green beak. And that parrot is a very, very famous parrot because it came from Fort Lauderdale. Now, all of these people out there watching you, watching that parrot, okay, know where Fort Lauderdale is. And a long time ago, I went out and I was waiting for my wife at an outdoor bar. I saw a man come over to a woman. He placed a parrot on her arm, okay? And he told her that the parrot would bite if her arm started to come down. So she managed to keep her arm up straight in a cataleptic position. And every time her arm would start to come down, the parrot would start to walk up. So she would just keep her arm there, and that parrot stayed there. Now, it was a strange thing, because this was a naturally occurring trance state for this woman. But I found out something about parrots. And what I'd like you to do is think about this parrot that's now on your arm. because it'll be a very special gift for you. And see all those colors. See the beak, and the feet. Now I'd like you to think about something that's been bothering you for a long time. Nothing real serious or real heavy. Perhaps something you want to learn. Because this parrot is your parrot now, and it's a very special parrot. It doesn't do any of that stuff on your back like other parrots do. This parrot doesn't bite, and this parrot happens to be as creative as your unconscious can be. And what I'd like you to do is think about that problem. Turn your head just a little bit this way. And listen to that parrot as that parrot gives you a new set of instructions, a new insight and a new perspective. That's right. That's right. When that parrot is all done giving you those instructions and you understand it, you can allow your arm to drop very slowly and allow that parrot to get to your shoulder so that you'll be comfortable and the parrot will be comfortable. You can be surprised, delighted about what that parrot has to teach you. That's right. That's right. And from now on, you can keep that parrot right there. And it can give you all the inside information you've ever wanted to know. Because it's a very special parrot. That's right. Now you can come back here. Now, let me ask you a question, okay? And talk out there to them, okay? Now, what color do you think this parrot got to be? What color was it?
Well, it was green, red, and blue.
Okay. Notice what she did. She added some colors. That's pretty sneaky. What kind of voice did it have?
It had my voice.
So you had a green and red and blue parrot that had your voice.
Yes.
Okay. Did it tell you something special?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because we're not going to ask you what it is. Okay. But is the problem that you were looking at the same now, or is it different?
It's entirely different.
I mean, think about it. How could it be the same if you had a parrot that talked to you in your voice, giving you answers? I mean, seriously, think about that. Okay, in fact, what I'd like all of you to do would be to take a few minutes with each other, walk over, do any kind of pattern interrupt. Richard's was a real nice one, where you go to shake hands with the person, okay, and instead of shaking hands, instead of grabbing their hand this way, you grab with this hand and say, all right, now just look into your hand. Don't do this to
Someone
me.
told me never to accept a bird from anyone.
Don't accept a bird from anyone.
A psychic told me never accept a bird as a gift from anyone, but I thought this kind would be okay. That was a little interference.
Yes, I understand. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is go out, grab a hold of somebody, do a pattern interruption. Come back here.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. And as you do the pattern interruption, you get the person, that's one time. Okay. You can do a handshake so that you hold their hand. Okay. You've been doing this for the last 2 days. I've been watching you. Okay. You get a little bit of catalepsy. Come over and give them the bird. Okay.
It's not going to bite, right?
It's not going to bite. Okay, and it also doesn't eat, so it doesn't do the other stuff. I mean, I really understand why a psychic would say, don't take a bird from anyone. Yes.
I noticed that Richard was touching her back, and then you started touching her back. What was the purpose of touching her back?
We like her back. No, Richard was doing something that Richard does, and you can ask him about that. And I was just playing with her anchors that were already set there.
He set an anchor there.
Of course. Set at least 7 that I know of. Okay. How many of you, by the way, have been aware of Richard's anchoring tonally? Did you ever notice that his voice changes?
For the gift.
You're welcome for the gift. This afternoon, when he comes back, what I would suggest is that you pay some attention to voice changes and tones and tempo. Okay? There'd be one way to learn from Richard. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is go off with somebody and give them a bird. Now, you don't have to just give them a bird, okay? You have a lot of choices coming from your own creativity. Okay? You could give them, what would be another creature that you could give them? A genie!
I like that.
You could give them an elf.
Yeah, leprechaun.
Okay, Dennis, wait a minute, don't go away yet. Dennis wants to give them a frog. Okay, I mean, all day long you'd have to be going, okay, what would be another type of thing? What I want you to think in terms of, Edmund, a minute. Okay, what I want you to think in terms of is something that's got a voice. Okay, so the voice can talk. Okay, this should take you like about 5 minutes. Frame it by giving the person the opportunity to go find their own thing they want to change. Okay, then as their arm comes down and the parrot walks to their shoulder, or the genie, or the frog, okay, that they will begin to get a different perspective on the thing that they've been dealing with. Now, it does not have to be a problem. Wouldn't you rather, for example, go for creativity in a way where you could be more creative? Why not? Okay, now today is Hands Across America. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to play some games with that. And it's too hot to go stand around a pool, honest. But one of the things that I'd like to do with you, and you can all pretend that you're good sports and play with me. This is yes. This is no. Okay, how many of you would like to have a lot of starving people in our country? No.
For dinner.
Well, back in the late 60s, I had the opportunity to teach some new and evolving courses. One of them was called The Social Aspects of Drugs. Okay, and I taught it up at Fairleigh Dickinson University, and I walked in onto the campus and I said to the kids in my class, God, what a registration we had. Okay? I mean, there were something like 85 people signed up for the first class. I went, wow. And I walked in and I said to them straight out, I said, hey, I don't know as much as you know about drugs. And in fact, I don't know nothing because I don't do those things. They all went, oh, we're going to get over on him. Easy Ed, right. Okay. Now, I didn't realize what I was letting myself in for when I started teaching this course. But they didn't realize what they were getting into. Okay. Now, one of the things that I had was a contract system for grades. So we set standards and said, okay, if you meet this standard, you get this grade. Now, to get an A, they had to go down to Greenwich Village, okay, and take a case of oranges and an equal number cans of beer, okay, and they'd go down into the Bowery. You all know what the Bowery is? Okay, it's a place where all the old alcoholics hang out, okay. Now, their task was real simple, okay. What they had to do was go down And they would give to the alcoholics on the street a can of beer after they watched them eat an orange. Okay? Because we figured beer has some protein in it, but they'd also get their vitamin C and they'd get healthier. So we used their addiction to get them to do stuff like that. But because I felt some responsibility for my students, I went with them. Okay? Now, I don't know how many of you have seen people eat out of garbage pails. Okay? And one of the things that the concept of Hands Across America is about is to try to provide some alternate ways of getting people fed. And I'm kind of for that. Now, standing out at the pool is a little too hot. Okay? So I figure what we can do is we can do it in trance. Now, you've all heard about time distortion. Okay? There's another thing called space distortion. So we're going to do that one now and have you go on a little trip. Now, the question I was asking myself was, would it be interesting to have everybody in this room hold hands? Now, it would mean we'd have to alter all kinds of stuff to get to there. Or could you do it in trance? Now, what I want you to do is go inside and ask yourself, and wait for an answer on this one. Can we do this in trance? Can I hold everybody else's hand? Okay, and then let your unconscious signal me. Good. I have enough yeses so we can have an unbroken chain. Okay, now the second thing I want you to do, which is going to be the most important thing that I can think of in this whole project, outside of when you dig deeply into your pocket and donate some money to some of the organizations that are sponsoring this thing so that they can in turn go out and feed people. Okay, what I want you to do is figure out where in the country you'd want to be standing. Okay, some of you are going, yeah, got it. Okay, I want you to think about that for a minute. Where and with who? Who would you like to have on your left? Who would you like to have on your right? For you Reagan fans, he's going to be doing it today. Yeah, stand with Ronald Reagan. Maybe there's somebody you've always wanted to seduce. Oh. Maybe there's somebody you've always wanted to seduce, and now's your opportunity. You can have them on your right. Jim, put Reagan on your right. Okay, so have you got your spot? Yeah. Just as an aside, I was talking to somebody who was talking last night about this particular project. It was you, Dave, wasn't it? Why don't you tell them about your idea? Listen to this one. This is kind of wild.
I can't take credit for it.
Well, whoever it was, but say it loud enough so everybody can hear you.
It's Paul Williams, I think.
Well, probably.
Yeah, about anchoring an orgasm across the U.S.
Whoa! It's called attribution. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to pick a really gorgeous or particularly lonesome spot, you know, your choice, and the people on each side of you. Who would it be? You know, here you have your choice to go for anybody. You know, because sometimes when you're holding hands, some of those vibes kind of rub off. Now, if it were me, I'd like to hold Clint's hand. Okay, because he sits around and he does karate all day, and if I could learn how to do that stuff. Who is it going to be? What do you want to rub off on you? Where do you want it to rub off? What location? I'm getting deeper here. Okay, now, you've all got lots of stuff to be able to go in a trance. So what I'm going to do is take you on a little bit of a trip and come along with me and hold those hands. So allow yourself to kind of slip away and get into that trance state comfortably. what I'd like you to do is begin to imagine 3,500 miles across this entire country. All the energy that we as an American people have. Think about the things that we've been through as a country, and we're only 200 years old. And you're a part of that. Your energy is a part of that. And you're the reason why we're so great. As you reach out and you hold those hands out, you hold the person next to you, allow yourself to get in that eagle's body. Fly up there and soar for a few minutes. Soar along and look down. And see that line. Some of America's very best people out there saying that they care about each other. Maybe it's been a little too long since we've done that. For some of you who are in Nam, lost friends in Nam as I did, think back to those days. Some of you can remember Korea. Think about what it represents when a whole group of people walk out there today. And symbolically, you're a part of that. You're holding a hand of a hand. Allow yourself to think about the things that could be done if we truly raise $50 million. Human beings in this country eating. Think about your part in that. Your ability. And as you look at that unbroken line going from coast to coast, imagine the amount of energy, brain cells, the people involved in that line. Perhaps as the person on your right squeezes your hand, and you squeeze the person on your left. That moves from one end of the coast to the other. About your part. You're only one person of two, stretched out in a line. Think about that energy. Think about things that you could solve. That's right. Think about your own little problems, perspective, to those much larger problems. Perhaps as you feel that squeeze and that energy flow from one end of the country to the other, imagining all those poor people, arms across America getting fed, might begin to wonder about the problems that you've solved this weekend for you. That's right. Changes you've made. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to come back, away from that location, back to here in the Court of Flags, a very sunny day, Florida. It's a wonderful state. Because you're going to have new learnings throughout the day, the afternoon. Many of those will go with you. Just imagine a number of people being fed. That's right. Now allow yourself to float back to here, in this room. That's kind of nice. I got to go. Did you like that? Good. See, Andrea and I, being social workers, I mean, you know, we're kind of, come on in. We'll get down to serious stuff now. We're going to talk.
Oh, yeah.
You want to start off with reminiscing?
Imagining all of those poor people? You don't have to imagine them, they're there.
Well, we were seeing them. How many of you, by the way, were able to see a person get fed because of what you did? That's cool. Good. Me too. Want to talk first or talk later? Want to exercise them first or later?
It's up to you, you're the boss.
Oh, okay. Well, being as I'm the boss, you talk, and I'll go outside and have a cigarette. And then I'll come back later and we'll talk about... By the way, would it be useful for all of you to have Richard and I share our impressions of Milton and tell you some stories about that? Is that... Want to do that now? Yes. Okay.
What's that cigarette?
I got a secret.
You do?
Yeah.
So do I.
I can light it if I want.
That's true. Anybody that it used to bother, it won't now.
How many of you, by the way, are allergic to cigarette smoke? Yeah. Because that'd be a
Why are
real
you
useful
proud of
thing.
it? Yeah, but you don't need to be allergic to not smoke. You don't care for it, that's not allergic. There are a lot of people that have developed such a phobia of it. Yeah, well, then, I mean, that's not fun.
It's not
It's
real
like being
useful.
allergic to just about anything. Onions, all kinds of different things, is not necessarily the best choice. I mean, it's one thing to just dislike it. Make other people's eyes water. See, I always remember a long time ago, I tried to get across to a group of women who I had to fill in for another trainer who were unable to do their seminar. It just happened to be a women's group, and there was nobody else around, so I thought, well, what the hell? So I went in and I asked them how many of them just totally felt bad when men used words like chick, honey, stuff like that. And I went down the list, and you could watch the people all through the room, and I said, now, it strikes me that coming up with more words that make you feel bad is not a very good model for liberation. You want to get liberated, make up words that make other people feel bad. That makes more sense. Now, there is one thing I want to do before we, because we have plenty of time.
All kinds of
Right. Before we go outside and smoke a cigarette, could you get me a Coke, too? And if you could put it in a glass with some ice. Yeah, there's ice in the water out there. And it may not be for long. How many of you live here? You must like heat. Oh, boy, I mean, just the walk across the street. There's a nice arcade down there. How many of you have been in that arcade? If you like arcade things, you could go in there and never come out. Talk about trance inductions. Big video screens with all those things happening. See, what I wanted to do was to have you do something so that you can take these learnings, whether you're going to use them in direct trance work or any kind of NLP work, and to expand the range of what you do with them by finding out in what you call the arcade of the mind, or what we call nelpersizing. Now, and if you're good at it, you can get a nelpersized t-shirt. What you're going to do is, see, I'll give you a couple of examples. I want you to first start, like, close your eyes. Now, the thing is like, if you stop and you think about how just pushing a memory off into the distance, something that bothers you that happened recently, and just by pushing it away, made it seem like it was longer ago. Now, what I want you to do is to start by taking something that feels wonderful. And as you take that feeling, I want you to reach over with the other hand and fire off your trance anchor so that as you go into trance, you take that good feeling with you, because as long as you're going to go into a trance, you might as well enjoy it. Now, as you begin to go into a trance, I want you to notice as you go deeper and deeper, and you keep that memory in your mind, what submodalities change that allow you to know you're going deeper into a trance. The finest hypnotists that are coming out of our trainings now are the ones that are able to deepen trance with the technology that realizes that the subjective experience of going into a deep trance is like everything else. So that as you keep that pleasant, exquisite memory in your mind, and you go deeper and feel yourself go deeper, does the image change? Does it get brighter? Does it look farther away? Does it get closer? Now, as you notice, as you feel yourself go way down, once again, I'm going to give you the instructions for your exercise using post-hypnotic suggestion. It makes it easier to follow these instructions with great skill, because your unconscious mind knows more about remembering than you do. Now, when you get your partner in the exercise later, you're going to do things like this. I want you to take that memory of ecstasy, and I want you to just magnify it and find out if when you do, number one, does it make you feel better? And number two, does it deepen? Or does it lighten your trance? Now, push it back to where it was. And what I want you to do is to lift your yes finger if it deepens your trance, and your no finger if it didn't. Now. That's right. Now, this will be the means by which you, the hypnotist, doing what I'm doing now, will find out exactly which things deepen a person's trance. Now, what I want you to do is to take that image that's out there and tilt it at a 45-degree angle away from you. And notice. And if it deepens your trance, raise your yes finger. If it doesn't, raise your no finger. Now, I want you to take whatever is in that image and make it a movie that's slow, down, more and more and more. And again, your unconscious can let me know automatically if it deepens your trance or not. And each time I or your partner asks about one submodality or another, either a yes finger or a no finger will tell the hypnotist how to take you deeper. Now, when you're the hypnotist, if tilting things at a 45-degree angle does not deepen the trance, then tell your partner to bring it back up. Now, what I want you to do is to let all the color, if there is any, out of the image. So it's just black and white. And your unconscious signal will let me know if it deepens your trance or not. Now, I'm going to count 2 ones. And when I do, you'll find yourself arising from this trance, refreshed and alert, with that feeling of ecstasy attached. And then find a partner and go through each and every submodality you can think of, and only keep the ones that deepen the trance. And find out how deep you can go. How low can you go? 1, 1. Go for it.
Remember Richard saying to people, raise your hand if you know who Milton Erickson is. There was a room full of 400 and some odd people, okay? You know how many people raised their hand?
These are, I want to tell you, 70 to 80 to 90% of these people were psychotherapists of one form or another. And maybe 2 of them raised their hand. With 500 people in Minneapolis, 3 people raised their hand. Nobody knew who the man was. Until some people started talking about the difference between competence
And
incompetence in psychotherapy.
I would have used a different word for that one, but
You see, the one thing about Milton is that he did more in terms of innovating psychotherapy and psychiatry than just about anybody did. He had what I call chutzpah. The treatments that he did with people were amazing. I mean, he had a client, and I mean, the man was patient, who was in a mental hospital, Eloise State, who spoke word salad. I mean, real psychotics, not just crazies like you get every day. Guy just, and every time Milton would walk through the front door, this guy would utter 2 sentences of word salad. So finally, Milton had his secretary sit there and transcribe, you know, tape and transcribe all the word salad that this guy spoke, and went home and learned to speak word salad. Now, Milton walked up to the door. The guy gave him 2 sentences of word salad. Milton responded with 2 hours of word salad. Then the guy began to go on a long 4-hour sprint of word salad, to which Milton responded with 4 hours of word salad. He said in the article about it, this taxed the author greatly. And at the end of this, the guy turned to him and looked at Milton and said, God, you're the first person I met who can talk. Milton showed me in his files, Milton is what we refer to as a pack rat. And Milton,
twice over.
And Milton showed me in his files on this guy that he had gotten every year since, because the guy eventually was out of the mental hospital, the guy sends him every Christmas a Christmas card with a big long note and word salad. Now, most psychotherapists, especially and psychiatrists in those days, you know, really didn't try and do much of anything except for, you know, Rosen. Rosen's idea of psychotherapy was to enter the client's model and ruin it. Just spoil their schizophrenia, you know. And he was a pretty creative guy. But Milton had such elegance. He knew the language patterns, which we extracted in Patterns 1 and Patterns 2, which I think would be now very valuable for you to read. But he did up one side and down the other things that were just absolutely incredible. The first time I went down to visit Milton, since I wasn't a psychotherapist, I wasn't anything. I was just crazy, which should have qualified me to go see him. But I decided when I wanted to meet Milton, because I wanted to learn hypnosis, the way I've always done things is go to the best. and just make sure they teach me. So I read all of Milton's articles there were, and I had never done much of anything, but Gregory Bateson had given me one little piece of audio tape. So went down to Arizona, didn't even have an appointment, just picked up the phone and used his patterns to say, people can, Milton, make time for me. And he said, come over anytime. Now, when John and I walked in the door and sat down, Milton looked over at us and he said, once a long time ago, 2 boys from California came to study me. Gregory Bateson sent those 2 to me. Their name was J. Haley and John Wheatland. They were a great disappointment. I looked back at Milton and I said, it takes a good student to learn from a teacher. And having met those 2 people, I understand. Now, this is what I want you to do, Milton, to teach me. And I proceeded to get Milton to first do everything he had claimed in his articles he could do, because there was no better way. Now, for the sake of brevity, I brought along somebody who happened to be in the hotel. I went, you, come with me. And it was a nice little lady, and her name was Angie. And Angie, when she found out where she was going, she told me, oh, I don't want to be hypnotized. She said, I don't think I can be hypnotized, but I wouldn't like it. And I said, that was the way it was, wasn't it? And I said, can you change your mind? No. She went, yeah. But when she came in, there was another lady there. Milton gave audience for 2 hours a day in a room about the size of that blackboard with a huge air conditioner on the wall that didn't put out any cold air. And Betty would bring him in a wheelchair and dump him into this seat, and he would sit on his desk. And a little pillow to put his arms on. And he'd look over at you, and the gleam in his eye let you know that maybe his body was old and crippled. But the lights were on, and there was somebody home. Maybe...
One of the interesting patterns that I found with Milton was he would come in, be wheeled in by Betty early in the morning, or early in the afternoon, rather, and he would sit in a chair like this until he looked up, and you would see these sparkling blue beamers, okay? And I didn't know anyone that couldn't, just sit and smile right back at him. It was kind of an exciting smile in his eyes. Not in very sensory-based words, but I don't know how else to describe it.
Well, once he began to speak, there was not too much sensory experience left. So Milton took one of the other women in the room, and he had a chair that was definitely the trance chair, and the others were just regular little chairs. And it was interesting because when you go in there, nobody would go sit in the trance chair. As if I'm hypnotizing somebody this way, my voice doesn't go that way. But Milton had this person who already knew about going into a trance in the trance chair, and he had Angie turn and watch how that person's face as they went into a trance. Now, the thing about mirroring somebody who's going into a trance is while Milton is now closer to your ear than the person who's going into a trance, resulted in the fact that about 7 or 8 minutes later, Angie went sideways out of the chair, and fortunately I caught her before she hit the floor, and she was out cold. You would have thought he hit her with sodium pentothal. And then we put Angie into the trance chair, which was nice and comfortable. And Milton started to talk to her. And he said, in a moment, Angie, I'm going to arouse you from your trance. And when I do, I want to know if it's all right to meet me in the middle of nowhere. And you do know where to meet me. And if it's okay to do that and be 5 years old, then open your eyes now. And she opened her eyes, and she looked around, and she went like this. And Milton goes, and what do you have, little girl? So, my dog. Now, for the most part, having spent probably a lot less time than most of the people that studied Milton intensely, but having certain skills allowed me to study him differently. The one thing I was always impressed with is that in the course of that one day, Milton induced all the, I mean, had gone in with a list of all the deep trance phenomenon that he said he had done in the articles. Limited vision, pseudo-orientation in time. There's a great one for those of you who do therapy. Instead of age regressing someone, you put them into a deep trance and you orient them into the future 6 months, having solved all their problems and having changed their life so they're totally happy. And they're going to open their eyes in a minute and recount to you exactly what you did that worked and helped them so much. And then after they tell you, you have them close their eyes and have amnesia, and then you do it, and you become a famous therapist. And one of the other things he did was he hypnotized, in the article it said that he had 2 doctors, and Dr. A and Dr. B, and he hypnotized Dr. B and did deep trance identification, made him become Dr. A. Having known Dr. A for a long time, he knew how he looked, sounded, walked, and only would have memories and believe that he was Dr. A, and then aroused him from the trance and had them argue about who was the real one. These were 2 people who did not believe in hypnosis. Now, Milton also had a kind of a little bit of sense of humor, one might say, that went with the twinkle in his eye. For example, there was a man who came from Canada who was head of the Ericksonian Institute somewhere up there. And when I walked into the office, this guy was already there, and he was going through looking at all of Milton's diplomas and degrees and all that stuff. I mean, there was a wall plastered with these suckers. I must have had his own printing press. And, you know, he had every prestigious thing you could have, and he made it a life's work to get people to accept and use hypnosis and to prove to them that this was something worth having. And he, even when you first went there, made you fill out this thing, a page in a book, before you got to go into the back house. Because you had to be, you know, credible, because stage hypnotists had tried to get in to see him, but he'd always found them and done something to them. And he didn't want any con men or people like that. And what he didn't understand is why I wasn't a psychotherapist. I wasn't any of those things, because he didn't know about what information science is. And as I explained it to him, about the syntax and about the tonal patterns and about the things that work, he said, okay, then you have only 2 more tests that you must pass. Now, any of you who have met Milton will remember these tests. One is, first was a riddle.
Yes.
The other was, he had you read a page written by a woman, and at the end he asked you to tell you the woman's age, occupation, and diagnosis. Now, I read the letter, and I looked at him, and I told him her age and her occupation. I said I could kind of guess, but I mean, you know, I really wouldn't know, but I couldn't tell you diagnosis because I don't even know what the choices are. He said, you should know the diagnosis. And I said, Milton, I said, can you make it multiple choice? I said, I haven't had any psychology in my background. And he said, it's still very clear. He said, obviously, this woman is a schizophrenic. And she's 31 years old, and then he shows you why. And her profession is that she is a hotel whore. And I looked up at him and I said, Milton, how is this so familiar to you? And he put the letter back in and he said, do you know what a wise guy is? I said, somebody who gets what they want? And he said, no. I said, do I have to go back to school and study diagnosis and go around to hotels? And he went, no. Go into the back now. Now, the thing is when I got into the back and I walked in, and then Betty moved Milton from the front house to the back and dumped him in. Milton sat down and he told me a story about one time he was just sitting there and he was breathing at the same rate as one of his children. He has 9 children. It's not bad for a crippled, you know. A lot of practice makes, if you can't get out of bed, I guess that's what happens. But he was breathing at the same rate as one of his children and just sort of sitting there across the room, breathing at the same rate, you know, and learning to do exact pieces, you know, like from across the room, like being able to, as he breathed at the same rate, he could change his breathing, you know, and these were things that we had already noticed that he was doing. And then he said that, you know, how children are about things, you know, that sometimes that there's things they don't like. And so suddenly the one that didn't know what was going on and didn't understand looked up at me and said, stop it! And I looked at him and I went, okay, Milton, it's all right. Because it was his way to communicate unconsciously to you all the time. He could care about your conscious mind 1 iota, no. He'd look at you and all of his communication was to the other mind, which kind of got boring sometimes, and I began to drift off into my thoughts, you know.
I had a very similar experience.
I was telling some of you on Friday that as we went into Milton's trance, yes. As we went into Milton's office, we were already in a trance, because Richard had set it up so well for us, and John also set it up so well that we were going to meet the biggest master in the world. So we got in there and we all sat around and looked at each other. As we looked at each other, we waited for him to show up, and finally Betty wheeled him in, and he was sitting like this. He sat that way for 10 minutes. Okay? Now, none of us would talk.
Till Betty got back to the other house with the controls on. See, actually, Milton was a robot. Often felt that way when I was there, because he'd be talking to you. I had a patient once in 1941 who said to me,
That's right.
Richard, stop that.
And he would continue to do things like that, you know, throughout the course of the week that I had an opportunity to spend with him. And constantly telling us story after story after story. We would be in trance, out of trance, back in trance,
Up Squaw Peak,
down Squaw Peak,
looking for blue geometry.
going out to the museum to buy the real turquoise. And if you look through most of the literature, you'll find that there are certain themes that are going to flow through Milton's work.
One is get a job, get married,
Have children.
That was his definition of a cure. Now, insofar as at least he knew what he was doing with people, and the kind of people that he worked with mostly, I mean, he had a lady that had complete wacko psychotic episodes. We're talking the fall down, writhing on the floor kind. And they brought this lady out, and this lady was sitting in his office, and Milton said, and you have psychotic episodes. They said, yes. Milton said, all right. He reached down, he pulled out his drawer, and he pulled out this big manila envelope. And he looked at her, and he said, now, you're going to close your eyes, and as you do, all of those psychotic episodes will go in this manila folder, which he sealed up.
I'm glad.
Put her name on it, and then told her it would always be here, safely locked up in his filing cabinet. And she could always know that, and she could drop by any time just to make sure they had not gotten out. And she did. Once a month at least for the first year, a couple of times the year after, and finally, she ceased to show up there, but Milton still showed me the manila folder. I wanted to open it. But Milton said, Richard, people can keep their hands off of certain things and find themselves sitting in a chair. I always loved one of the lines he said when somebody went down. I went down the second time, and I went down with a friend of mine who owns science and behavior books. And science and behavior books and meta-publications are in the same place. And this psychiatrist bought his wife, who is PTA, Palo Alto, up Bucks, and, you know, the social butterfly type. And there were a couple of other people that they knew that went, I don't know who they were or what they were, but they were extremely nervous. Now, the psychiatrist's wife, in the 15 years I've known them, has sat down once. And you know those little tiny dogs that sit around like this? Those things?
Mexican jumper meat.
Well, like that? Yeah. And they go, ah, ah. You know. Those things? And, you know, you drop a pin and they go whoosh to the ceiling. But she was a little like that. And she was walking around and stuff, and when Milton came in and he said, will you please take a seat? And she said, oh, no, I prefer to stand. And he said, well, as you walk across the room, you might notice this up here. Did you see my little thing over here? And I want to show you my favorite thing is over there, right behind the chair you're going to sit down and go into a trance in. And she walked, she took 3 steps, she took a look at it, she turned around and went, and Milton said, now, that's out of the way.
See, he was the kind of man who had that kind of craft. He was the kind of man who had things like, I can remember Richard teaching a seminar at one point and teaching therapists how to give phobias. Okay? They go out and give a phobia to somebody. And people objected. They said, no, we're supposed to cure phobias. He said, but how will you know you have a choice if you don't know how to give them? And I went, that's pretty logical thinking. Milton was the same way. And Milton would do any number of things. And I remember sitting there in the chair resisting, because I was going as an NLP person. I was going to learn what Milton was doing and have conscious awareness of his patterns. That's what happened.
Melters are the dumbest people I've seen next to therapists sometimes. they get mixed up, being a neuro-linguistic programmer, with being a modeler. I go sometimes, like, for example, I accidentally, one time, left this cordless mic in the bathroom. When I went in the bathroom and I set it down, and when I came back in the room, it was still coming through. And here are these couple of people sitting in the bathroom, they're in there, you know, in front of this thing. One guy's going, yeah, man, I'm figuring out what Richard's doing, man. I'm getting his patterns, boy, you know. And when he started listing all these things, you know, what it boiled down to is I was speaking and breathing. Right? Yeah, man, and he did this because of that and because of that. Well, there's a real difference between having the skill to be able to take something that has, see, you'll know you're a modeler if you can do this. You can take 30,000 on-off switches and make up a way where the combination of those on-off switches is converted into a language to control another language so that you can type words and program those on-off switches to do something. Now, the patience of a modeler to be able to go through all that nonsense to make up a computer language is the similar task. But when people think they know what I'm doing and are modeling me, when they're in a seminar where I'm just laying it out for them, the thing is without that kind of training, without knowing about modeling elegance, it's one thing to try and do it with me, but to try and do it with Milton in his office was just absolutely something they had forgot about.
So anyway, we sat there, okay, and I was convinced I was not going to go into a trance. About Tuesday afternoon, Milton turned around, he looked over at me and he said, you know, I've told a lot of stories in here. Told you this story, this patient. And I have one more story to tell you. As he did that, inside my head, a little voice said, you win. Next thing I know, I kind of went like this, and the following thing that I remember was I was on the floor. I looked up because I had pulled off his diploma off the wall on my way down. And he looked up at me and said, it's all right.
You videotaped that?
Yeah.
I saw that video. You really went down, boy.
Boom!
You look like somebody that just passed out stone cold drunk.